Well, hello, everybody. Today we're back with the next episode of CommTalk. In this series, we have our friend and confidant, Denny Pavan.
There you
go. And he's the trade show expert here. So this is going to be a four-segment series that we are going to talk about trade show communications. Welcome, Denny.
Thanks, Dan. It's good to be here. And even though I'm only in the next office, the podcasting world is really booming here, and it's fun to be part of this today.
So how do you like our new studio?
This is great. This is really nice, and it's going to get better. It's really going to get better.
I think so.
Yeah, the world of trade shows, I don't want to go through my entire history of trade shows, but I've been in it for a while.
Yeah.
And I've watched the evolution of trade shows from both being on the exhibitor side, as well as working with companies that exhibit, and as well as working for a trade show for like 30 years.
Right.
And
you just got off tour, too.
Yes, I did.
Tour.
I was managing a fairly large exhibit. It's 10 by 20, but it needs construction to get it all up and everything. But that was at a recent show called IMAX in Las Vegas, which is for destinations.
Yeah.
And it's worldwide. So you get a chance to see a lot. Once you get the exhibit set up, I do a lot of touring and seeing what's going on in a show, who the exhibitors are, what they're doing to get people into their booths, what they're doing to promote. And it's fascinating to see the variances between very tiny to like a whole world that's being constructed at a show.
Wow. So give us an example, like a really big exhibit. Like, what would be a big one that you've seen?
A big one?
Yeah, like a big exhibit.
France.
Huh? What?
France. Well, the show is for destinations. So being a worldwide show, the countries that are there, like France, Italy, Portugal, Germany, on, including in the U.S., but all the cities around the U.S. that have trade shows. These shows are massive. I mean, the exhibit space is probably 500 square feet, maybe more.
Wow.
And there's a central area, but then there's also a lot of areas for, like you and I, where you're scheduling appointments and going in to meet one-on-one with different representatives. So I say France, but then there's Paris and there's Lyon and there's, all these different cities. Or in Italy, you've got, Venice and Rome. So those representatives for their hotels and areas there are there to talk about meetings. It's a meetings show. It's about meetings and travel.
Yeah.
But so that's a very large exhibit. But let's take a look at the one that I've worked with for years too. The it's called EQIP Exposition, and EQIP is for the lawn and garden products. Your large equipments, your John Deeres and Toros, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And those exhibits are massive. But then, if you break it down from large ones, there's also rows of what we call 10 by 10s. They're smaller, so a up-and-coming exhibitor can get a foothold in a show, or different ancillary products are there being exhibited. But that's at every show.
Right.
Whether it's in any industry, there's going to be a trade show. But trade shows go back a long way, like thousands of years. It used to be called a bazaar and, a marketplace. You think about it, they're still there. You go through the streets and people are selling wares and, pottery and clothing and everything. But let's move into the 21st century now. 20th century is really where the trade show world grew. Yeah. Actually, in the 18th century, 19th century, with the World Expositions, Chicago had, the massive World Expositions. Right. And that's where people brought new products and new technologies and new innovations. Yeah. That continues. New products, new technologies, new innovations continues whatever industry you're in. But I think what we want to really kind of break it down into is if you're wanting to be an exhibitor, or you are, there are 4 basic parts of the trade show world that I look at. And that is what I start with is the exhibit itself. And then we look at the pre-show part of the exhibiting elements. And then there's being at the show, what you do there. Yeah. And then after the show, the post-show follow-up. And so each one of those has a lot of communications elements attached to it now. Yeah. And we add the component of social media. It's grown even more, and video, and audio, and demonstrations, and even AI, which is AI. Yeah. So, but
Very interesting.
yeah, but let's think about the exhibit itself. Okay, so traditionally, not everybody's going to spend $1 million at a trade show.
Right.
Some do. I mean, it's amazing when you bring in video that and monitors that are raised above the exhibit area, and construction crews that are putting these things up for maybe 3 days.
Yeah.
But then there's for maybe 3 days, but then there's also the exhibitor that wants to just get that presence at the show, get a chance to have their brand and show what they do.
Yeah,
so,
right.
One thing that I've noticed is some people will put up a back wall, and it's a pop-up display, which is fine. But then you have to think about the messaging on that pop-up display and what your brand is going to represent. I think some people try to, especially first-timers, try to put everything on the back wall. Well, it's like, I want 10 bullet points and say this, this, and this.
And then this copy's microscopic, and you can't even read it.
Yeah, and I think that's really beyond what people are doing today. It shows, they sit in a chair and they have a table. Like, let's not do that.
That always reminds me of the person that does like their home sign. When they're selling their house, or the garage sale, they'll write it like this tiny, and they're thinking, well, I can read it, but you're down the street, you see like a white sign. You don't see any copy on it. Same idea, right?
Well, but what I see now too is more engagement and involvement with your trade show audience.
Yeah.
So your trade show display, even in a small 10 by 10 space, can be inviting and getting people inside your space,
right,
rather than just going past your space. But your image really has to be very strong. Your image on your exhibit, mainly your brand and what you do. And then you have other things you can do within the exhibit where you have a side table rather than a table in front of you, where you can display elements, or also just a little small bar style podium with 2 seats. So you can get someone in to talk to them basically back and forth with whoever is with you at the show. It's tough to do it by yourself. You usually would like to have 2 people at a 10 by 10 or more, but that way someone can engage with the passersby while someone else is really talking and having a conversation with someone they can get inside the booth.
What about, speaking of which, what about the people when you're talking, what are they supposed to be like when they're if you're in an exhibit, what are you supposed to be doing? Most people, you always hear, don't sit down. What are you supposed to do when you're there?
Smile.
Exactly right. And that's probably one of the big things that people don't do. Right?
Well, I think there's, interestingly enough, you are engaging with your audience, number one. And this goes back to some of the things beyond the exhibit where we have to talk about the pre-show too.
Right.
Inviting people to your booth. But, I think what I've noticed is having someone, that can engage. They've got a friendly personality.
Right.
They are very likable, and they can really just kind of attach to people going through, the show, because they're stopping by your booth for a reason. I mean, they are looking for things at a show, and if it appeals to what is in their list of, hey, I've got to see these elements at a trade show, then you catch the eye and you go, excuse me, but have you learned about the this part of our product line? Or
and it never hurts to have a model in your.
Well,
I'll be honest with you. I've seen, at least in my thought, we've done a couple of things where I'd be out there talking, you don't get anything. You bring somebody that's attractive, at least you're bringing people to your booth.
Well, you have to
good and bad.
I mean, I think in the trade show world, you have to have a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Not that it's a hired model
or an attractive person in your company, an approachable person. I guess would be
I think
better.
so. When you mentioned a model, I mean, at this last show, this exhibitor that I was working with wanted to have something that engaged the audience. Now we have a little bit bigger exhibit, but they actually hired a model, so to speak, but it was totally different. The Barbie movie is very popular.
Yes.
And we had enough room in the expanse of the booth to put in a giant Barbie box for selfie photos with Barbie.
Oh, that's smart. That's really smart.
You know, for the
Clever.
audience that was at this particular show, it was very engaging. So while people were coming to the booth just to see this, it's like, okay, hey, you know, come on in and you get the selfie, and the technology allows you to take the selfie and send it back to your friends via email. It's kind of a fun element. But then other shows or other exhibitors are doing similar types of things, but in a different way. Nashville was offering a very, very nice guitar. But in order to, you know, at least talk about it, it's on display, and they get people a chance to take a look at it, but then you win it. So the idea there is getting contacts and building your contact list for new leads. That's the other part of a trade show exhibit, obviously, is leads and the engagement part. But with the exhibit itself, I think brand and strong image, I mean, a very powerful, engaging image could be, I'm just going to use like a miraculous shot of a space module or a UFO or something. But if it has something to do with your company, it's how you make your brand message work. And then
that's key.
Also,
that's key. So wrapping up, that was a great 2 cents, great ideas, you know, that we've come up with for our first episode. So this is going to be a series. We have 3 more that we're going to be doing on this. And Denny, I really appreciate you being on today with us, and we look forward to doing the next one.
Yeah, looking forward.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
Have a good one.
All right.
All right.